Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It's Saturday. It is the weekend. I hope you're all having a very good start to it, wherever you are watching or listening to this around the world. Not too long to go now to Arsenal versus Manchester United, the second game, of course, of Arsenal's pre-season tour over in the United States. Mikel Arteta has been speaking overnight. Well, overnight, if you're watching this UK time. Ahead of that game, so we'll go over what he's had to say. He talks about transfers. Well, he's kind of not talked about transfers in typical Mikel Arteta's style. We'll look at what he's had to say about Man United, about the title race. We'll look at my predicted 11 for tonight's game. Will a few more of the senior players come in? I think they might. So we'll go over the predicted 11. Got lots of questions and comments from you guys as well. And of course, we'll talk a little bit about transfers and Riccardo Calafiori as that one rumbles on and gets closer, just about to completion. Right, as I said, Mikel's been speaking over in the States ahead of tonight's game against United in LA, SoFi Stadium, of course, LA Rams, Stan Kroenke's masterpiece, if that's what you want to call it, that huge new stadium. And Mikel's been speaking about plenty of things. And of course, he was asked about Calafiori and the importance of evolving the squad this summer. He says the full focus is on trying to improve these guys and getting the best out of them consistently so they can perform every 3 days at the level that we want. We know that we have certain parts in the squad that we would like to improve, but that is dictated by the market. At the moment, we already have a great squad and we are giving the opportunity for our young players from the academy to be with us. And it's a joy to have them on tour with us. So typical Mikel Arteta when he's asked about transfers, not saying too much, certainly not in terms of any incomings and pointing to the players that he already has at his disposal. But we know they are trying to strengthen, and an absolutely key part of that strengthen is Riccardo Calafiori, who was due to arrive yesterday at London Colney. That was delayed, and so he is now due to arrive today at London Colney, where he's going to go through his first part of medical, and then he's going to fly on to the United States. Now, had he arrived yesterday, I don't know what the delay was, but the plan was he was going to arrive yesterday. Had that actually gotten through on time, then he thought maybe he would get to the States in time to watch the United game and might get spotted in the stands and all that sort of stuff. I think now that might be pushing it, because I think he's due to be arriving or flying from Italy this morning. Probably get to London. I can't imagine he'll be there in time for the Man United game, but certainly by Liverpool. So it is getting closer. We might have to wait an extra day before maybe we see him in an Arsenal shirt. But Riccardo Calafiori's move now very, very close to happening. So he is going to be heading over. He is that sort of part of the squad that Mikel knows that Arsenal need to strengthen. The left-back situation last season was obviously a problem for Arsenal. Used a lot of players. They've got lots of options there, but they never settled on one. And you would think that with the addition of Calafiori, he is going to be the sort of long-term left-back solution. You would imagine after he sort of has his time adapting and bedding in. I doubt he'll go straight into the side, but there's certainly a place there for him to win, and that improves that section of the squad. And then you move on to what you want to do in midfield and what you want to do in attack. We know in midfield, Marino at Real Sociedad, big target at the moment, a player that Arsenal like and are interested in, and could well look to get over the line. There's been links with Fabian Ruiz. We'll talk about that a little bit later on the show. Someone sent in a question about Fabian Ruiz as well. So Arsenal will be looking to improve midfield after the Calafiori signing happens. And of course, I still think they're going to add something to attack. So we are getting there. The squad is beginning to evolve, as people have been asking Mikel Arteta about, maybe a little bit slower than a lot of people would have liked, but it is happening. And with Calafiori, that's the sort of first significant incoming that Arsenal are going to be able to announce at the transfer window, barring David Raya, of course, who did make his move permanent after that loan spell last season. Emil Smith-Rowe remains in the States. He is there at the moment. He's not come back to London or anything like that. Still talks ongoing with Fulham to get this deal over the line. It is close, but it's not done and dusted yet. Obviously, Mikel didn't use him in the game against Bournemouth because of what's going on with the Fulham talks. Whether he changes that stance for the United game, I doubt it, because I don't see why you'd not play him against Bournemouth and then you bring him back in for the Manchester United game. And I've heard nothing to suggest that what's going on with Fulham has sort of slowed down or anything like that. The talks are still very, very close to coming to an agreement, and so I imagine he won't be included today. But all parties sort of pushing to get this one done. It just feels like a good move, as we've spoken about before, for everyone, for Fulham, for Arsenal, for Smith-Rowe, of course, as well, who just needs to go out and play now. And hopefully that is one that gets done sooner rather than later. But at the moment, Smith-Rowe remains in the United States. He remains with Arsenal. and we'll wait to see a little bit later whether Mikel decides to use him or not. The squad has been bolstered over in the States. If you're watching on YouTube now, you can see a very happy-looking Gabriel Martinelli and Gabriel Magalhaes, of course, and Kai Havertz. All three of those have now linked up with the squad. They arrived on, what day are we now? Saturday. I think they arrived on Thursday night UK time. They had their first training session yesterday with the squad. Whether they'll get any minutes tonight against Manchester United, we'll have to wait and see. I imagine if it is, it will only be a handful from the substitutes bench in the second half. I'm certainly not expecting any of them to start, but just the squad continues to grow stronger. We had the second batch arriving just before they went to the States in Trossard, Zinchenko, Kivior, Jorginho, those sort of players who all played in the second half in the game against Bournemouth, and could well be the case for this lot. So this is the third group who are arriving, and then we've just got the fourth lot as well who will be arriving after the United States tour before the two games at the Emirates. Great to see those three involved again, and it'll be good to see them in action a little bit later on. On the game against Manchester United, this is what Mikel Arteta had to say. Would it be a significant win going into the new season? He says, winning always helps. It brings belief. It brings good vibes. We are playing one of the best teams in the world in one of the nicest stadiums in the world, built by our owners. So it's a big day for us tomorrow. Look, it's nothing. The result really doesn't matter. Arsenal lost to Manchester United in USA last season, 2-0. And then they finished about 40 points ahead of them once the season started, and United were dreadful and Arsenal were brilliant. So pre-season, it doesn't matter. If Arsenal were to lose this game, I'm sure Ten Hag, just like he did last summer, would be crowing about how good his team are and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, it's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things. You want to win. As Mikel says, winning always helps. If you can have a really successful pre-season, you can win your games, you can get that momentum going, then it helps you going into the new season. No doubt about that. But it's not going to be the end of the world if Arsenal were to lose tonight. Like I said, they lost this time last year quite convincingly as well. United were better than them and beat them 2-0, deservedly so, in the States last year, but then Arsenal beat them home and away in the Premier League, including that game at the end of the season when Leandro Trossard scored the winner at Old Trafford and finished miles ahead of them in the league as well. So it's not going to be, whatever happens tonight isn't going to have too much significance on the game, but it would be good to get the win. It was a real physical game last year. I don't know if you remember it, that 2-0, some big tackles going in, and United really sort of got at Arsenal in that game. It'll be interesting to see if they sort of take that tactic again tonight, but hopefully Arsenal can get a little bit of revenge and give their American fans something to cheer tonight at the SoFi Stadium. So this is a predicted 11 that I am going for tonight. And again, look, of course, don't hold me to this by any means. It's probably going to be hopelessly wrong. It's very, very hard to pick predicted 11s for these sort of games. But I'm going for a little bit of a stronger lineup than what we saw against Bournemouth. So I'm going Karl Hein in goal again, obviously. I'm going to stick with White and Timber as the right-sided part of the defence, but I'm going to say Kivior comes in as the left-sided centre-back. Obviously, Aiden Heaven played there against Bournemouth, but Kivior's now had a few more days to get up to speed. He came on in the second half in the game against Bournemouth, so I think he's going to come in and play the left-sided centre-back role alongside Timber, and then I'm going to stick with Miles Lewis-Skelly at left-back, but you could well have Zinchenko playing at left-back, obviously, like Kivior. He's had a few extra days now getting ready after his late arrival after the Euros. But I'm sticking with Lewis-Skelly. I thought he played well against Bournemouth, and it'd be good to keep him in the team. Then I've got Thomas Partey in front as a holding midfielder. Once again, I'm bringing Trossard in to midfield. Odegaard as well. He didn't start against Bournemouth. So I'm going Odegaard and Trossard as the two sort of number 8s in this team. Don't really like Trossard playing there, I have to say. And, it'd be nice if Nwaneri kept his spot, but I wouldn't be surprised if he goes with Trossard. And then I'm going with the front three of Vieira and Nelson, who both started that game against Bournemouth, but I'm playing Gabriel Jesus as the central striker. So that's the predicted 11. That's what I'm predicting Mikel will go with for tonight's game. Hein, White, Timber, Kivior, Lewis-Skelly, Partey, Odegaard, Trossard, Vieira, Nelson, and Jesus. A little bit more from what Mikel was been speaking. I thought there was some quite interesting stuff here when he was talking about the title bid for Arsenal this season, and whether it's going to be harder to go again after being so close and missing out 2 seasons in a row, and what he thinks it will take to beat Man City this year. And he says, look, I think the message is very clear. We need more from everybody. That means personally, I have to raise my standards, and I need to bring something that I haven't brought yet. And individually and collectively, we have to do the same. And for our people, it is the same. The more they help us, the better chance will be for us to win the Premier League. That's what we want. So we need to work every day with the excitement and understanding the difficulty of it. When difficult times come, we need to be together and go through them efficiently. And then asking about, what it takes to beat City. He said 114 points. If you do that, you win the league for sure. This is the objective. And from there, let's see what we can get. But today, that has to be the target. Win every single game and earn the right to win it. Have the biggest probability on the opponents to win the game. When we have difficulties, we still need to be better than the opponent. So that's the objective. I don't think you can get 114 points, can you? Isn't it 115 points if you win all the games? I might be wrong. I'm sure it's not 114 points. I'm sure it's 115 points. I don't think it's possible to get 114. You can either get 113 or 115, but maybe that's me just nitpicking. But I thought it was interesting when he was talking about him having to raise his standards as well in terms of what it's going to take to get past City. He'll probably know. I bet he looks back on what happened last season. He'll think, I made some mistakes here and there in terms of team selections, in terms of team rotation, in terms of, sharing minutes about things that Mikel would have gone away this summer and absolutely looked at and thought, I have to do this differently if we're going to get better. It's not just about players getting better. It's not just about systems getting better. It's about Arteta getting better and improving as well. And I thought it was quite interesting that he brought that up at last night's press conference. Right, moving on to some questions and comments now before we wrap this one up. Reese has got in touch and says, hi, Charles. Many reports now saying Villa are demanding at least 40 million for Juan Duran, who has been linked with West Ham. Surely, if that figure is correct, then we should be looking at more than 25 million for Eddie. It's more experience, more goals, and has an English tax. What's your take on it? 100%. Absolutely 100%. I've always said 50 million maybe is a bit unrealistic for Eddie, but way more than 25 million. I think 40 million is a very good number for someone like Eddie, I would say, in this market. English, like you said, Premier League proven, scores goals. I just think 25 million, no way. If Smith Rowe's going for a deal that's going to eventually hit about 35 million, as much as I love Emil Smith Rowe, he's barely played for the last 2 years, not scored for a couple of seasons. You got Eddie, on the other hand, who's played a fair amount, he's scored goals. He's got to go for more than 25 million. So, 100%. I think 25 million would be a nonsense for Eddie Nketiah, if you ask me. Here's one from Roman. It says, hi, Charles. William Saliba is also not with the squad. When will he come back? And is he going to be ready for the start of the season? No, he comes back at the same time as the people who got to the finals. So it's the semi-finals and the finals. They come back after the tour. So it's going to be no Saliba in the tour. He comes back when Saka and Ramsdale and Raya and Declan Rice come back. So that's when. Will he be ready for the season? Absolutely. I'm absolutely sure. He's only not been playing for about 3 weeks now. He's going to come back. He'll get a bit of training. He'll play against... he'll get some minutes, I imagine, in the second half of the Leverkusen games, the first one, and then it might start against Lyon. And I fully expect William Saliba, barring any injury, I fully expect William Saliba will start that opening game against Wolves. I'd be very, very surprised if he didn't. Right, we mentioned Fabian Ruiz earlier. Abby's got in touch here. It says Fabian Ruiz is much better than Merino, and they should go for him instead. He's available, and PSG are close to signing Neves, which will make Ruiz to be available. Yeah, Neves looks like João Neves is going to PSG, 70 million euros, I think. But then a couple of players, including Renato Sanchez. Earlier on in the summer, I was speaking to someone from Benfica, and they were like, "Oh, he's not going for anything less than his release clause." I suppose Benfica will point to this and say, "Well, ultimately, this is his release clause because we're getting the cash, and then we're getting players of the same sort of value that makes it hit 100 million, whatever the release clause was." But it looks like a good deal for PSG. Player they're not really using in Renato Sanchez and maybe someone else, and then you get João Neves for around 70 million. So it looks like a good deal for them. In terms of Fabian Ruiz, it's not something I've heard about myself. I've seen the links recently, but I haven't heard myself yet whether there's anything in it. Obviously, if I do, then I'll report that myself, but I've not yet. In terms of whether they should go for him instead, look, maybe if he is available, would you just sign Merino? Maybe they sign both. I don't know. We'd have to wait and see. But if there is a market opportunity there to maybe get him on loan for the season, something like that, they might look into it. I'm sure Arsenal would be putting the feelers out and seeing what is possible. But it's not something I've heard of yet. I know there's plenty of people who agree with your opinion that Ruiz is someone that Arsenal should go. Obviously, he had a fantastic Euros, showed that with Spain and his performances. I'm sure he'd fit in very well technically with this Arsenal team. But ultimately, Edu and Arteta kind of know what they're doing, and they know the profile of player that they really, really want. And if they decide that Merino is what they want and they don't want Ruiz, then ultimately that's their decision, isn't it? But thanks for the comment. And these were quite good. I spoke about this on yesterday's show. Someone said their hot take, and I asked for my hot take of the season. I asked for some of you to send yours in, and lots of you did. So very much appreciative of that. And I'll go through some of them now. Daniel says, hot take, Martinelli to be the UCL top scorer this season. I think he's going to be hot. I think he will outscore Saka too. That would be fantastic. Martinelli top scorer in the Champions League. It would certainly mean that Arsenal would go very, very deep in that competition. Naz says, yes, Charles, my hot take is this season we finally get the league title. Got a proven number 9 and we literally have no excuse. City 5 in a row is unthinkable and should be a sackable offence. Our era starts now or it's never. Not sure about that, to be honest. I'm not sure you could be really sacked if Manchester City win the title. It's like who's going to be the favourites for the league title this season, and who pretty much everyone picked to win the league title this season. Everyone's going to say City. So if they do win it, I hope they don't. And to be honest, I think Arsenal will win it. But if City do win it, unless, I don't think you can sack someone for coming second to Manchester City, if you see what I mean. But I get your point, and I hope your hot take is proven correct. The kicker says, my hot take is that we end up having a forward who finishes the season in the Prem Golden Boot race. I'm not saying we'll have the Golden Boot winner, but I have a sneaky feeling that Havertz or Jesus or someone could end up with 20 plus goals this year. If Havertz continues his form for us that he finished last season, he could very easily surpass 20 goals, and that should be enough to be in the top 3 or top 5, at least in the Golden Boot race. Yeah, 100%. If Havertz does continue in that sort of goal scoring form that he showed over the second half of the season, then it will be around the 20 goal mark. Mr. Guna DV says, my hot take for the season is that Vieira will have a breakout season and become an integral part of the team winning the league. We shall see on that. And Heisenberg, which is a very funny name that made me laugh, says, my hot take, Martinelli will outscore Saka this season. So you're agreeing with Daniel up the top there. And yeah, I have to, Martinelli to have a really top season, I would absolutely vouch for that. I think a lot of people are kind of writing off Martinelli on the back of one slightly disappointing year by his high standards, given what he set the year before. But Martinelli is still a top player. I think he gets a little bit of confidence in front of goal, then we are going to see a very different Martinelli this season to what we saw last season in and around the penalty area, because I think everything else he did last season was excellent. Martinelli was just that final little bit in the penalty area where his confidence seemed to take a little bit of a hit. If you can get that back early on in the season, then Arsenal could have a fantastic asset on their hands down that left-hand side. And that's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for all of you who are getting in touch as well. Do appreciate it. As always, have a fantastic start to your weekend. Enjoy the Olympics, of course, which is now underway, and I'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again, discussing that Manchester United game. If you want to get involved in that show after you've watched the game, come back. You know what to do. Get into the comments of this video. Give me your thoughts, your opinions, your reaction to what you saw, who impressed you, who didn't impress you, and I'll pull some of them together as always and get them included in tomorrow's reaction show. Have a great day, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.